لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومرشدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم للذين يؤلون من نسائهم تربص 4 أشهر فإن فاءوا فإن الله غفور رحيم وإن عزموا الطلاق فإن الله سميع عليم والمطلقات يتربصن بأنفسهن 3 قروء ولا يحل لهن أن يكتمن ما خلق الله في أرحامهن إن كن يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر وبعولتهن أحق بردهن في ذلك إن أرادوا إصلاحا ولهن مثل الذي عليهن بالمعروف وللرجال عليهن درجة والله عزيز حكيم. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, our sustainer, the one who gives us everything that we need and all things that we have in surplus. He is the one who gives us food and drink and air to breathe. And He is the one who gave us Iman, and He made us from the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, His last and final messenger. And He honored us once again by giving us this Iman and allowing us to act upon this. And He brought us into His house, the Masjid, and He also allowed us to perform our salah and then to sit in a gathering where His words are remembered. This is a great honor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Honor upon honor upon honor. And we should always be thankful for this, and we should always make the most of everything that we have been given by Allah ta'ala in the way that He wants us to use these things. Now we've been hearing from Surah Al-Baqarah, and at the beginning we heard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about those people with Iman. Then we heard about those people with kufr, with disbelief. Then we heard a couple of pages about the munafiqeen, and then we heard a long discourse about the Banu Israel and how Allah ta'ala gave them many, many things. And Allah ta'ala reminds them again and again about the different things that He did for them. And He reminds them that, do you remember when I gave you this thing, and I did this for you, and I saved you from Fir'aun, and so on and so forth. And all of this is to remind them of all of the things Allah has done for them, so that they might then return to Allah. And He reminds them of the mistakes that they made. And this isn't so much for us to laugh at them or to hold them in ridicule, but it's rather for us to take a lesson. That if they made those mistakes, then we must not fall into the same pitfalls. And then we heard some ahkam from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala told us about the qisas, the capital punishment, how it should be carried out. Then we heard about siyam, fasting. Then we heard also about hajj and how this should be done, about the different types of people that go for hajj. And then we heard about the different problems that a Muslim community might face. And remember that the Surah Al-Baqarah was revealed during the first 2 to 3 years of the Prophet ﷺ's time in Madinatul Munawwarah. And so this was a time when the Muslim community, the Muslim society was being established. their iman had been built in Mecca, and of course this continued. But thereafter now they needed some rulings about how to live as a community, how to live as individuals but also together. And so here we learn some of the purposes of the Sharia. The Sharia meaning the law, the Islamic law that we have from Allah, and we learn about some of the purposes that we have. And the ulama have mentioned 5 particular purposes. One of them is hifz ad-din, safeguarding the deen. And this can be from internal problems like our nafs, but also external influences. And so here we heard just a few weeks ago where Allah Ta'ala says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ, that fighting has been made obligatory for you, even if it is something that you don't really like to do. And no one likes to go and wage war. It's an unsavory thing to do. But if you find yourselves, and if you find your community, and if you find your deen under threat by an external force, and if that's the only way you can defend yourselves, then you must be willing to defend yourselves. And so this is where Allah Ta'ala said that كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ, fighting has been made obligatory for you, if it is necessary of course, even though it's something that you don't like to do. But those are external problems, and a person has to be willing to address them. As for the communal problems, you will have such things where a person will lose his mind. And one of the maqasid that is mentioned by the ulama is hifdhul aql, safeguarding one's own mind, one's intellect. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were concerned about the consumption of alcohol in Medina Munawwara, because it was allowed at the time. And so then they asked the Prophet ﷺ, and then the command of Allah came, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ, that they ask you about alcohol or all intoxicants, and maysir regarding gambling as well. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. Say to them that in them there is a great sin, but also there are some benefits as well for the people. But of course later on we had ayat where these were completely forbidden and they were made haram. But this was simply to ease the Muslims into accepting that these are not very good things and one should stay away from them. And so here we also heard about gambling and how this is also frowned upon and indeed forbidden. And from this we derive another maqsad, another purpose of Sharia, which is hifdhul mal, safeguarding a person's own wealth. One should be willing to safeguard this. This is of course an amana from Allah when a person is given wealth, and so one should safeguard it and use it properly. And then we went on and we heard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala some advice about the type of woman or a type of man that a person should marry. Where Allah ta'ala says, وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ. Remember that if you are giving your daughter in marriage to someone, then even a slave who is a mu'min is better than a mushrik, even if he might be a king. Remember, it's the iman that holds value here. So you should be looking at the type of person that your daughter is marrying, or indeed the type of woman that you are marrying, and you should look at their iman. Look at how close they are to Allah Ta'ala and choose that way. And so from this we see and we derive another maqsad, another purpose of Sharia, which is hifdhul nasl, safeguarding of one's progeny, of one's family, of one's children. Because of course you can only safeguard your children if you've chosen your spouse correctly. If your husband or your wife is not good, then how will you safeguard your children from their influence? So that's the first step that you must take. Think about who you're marrying. And so we heard about marriage in this way. And of course, a society is built from a family. If people marry properly, then in this way, family after family will be formed in the correct way, and then of course a whole society will be built upon goodness. But then, of course, we also know that not every marriage is successful. And there are some religions which forbid divorce and annulment of marriage, subhanAllah. But of course, Islam is a sensible religion. It's a sensible way of life. And so Allah Ta'ala has created us. He knows that sometimes we won't get along with everyone else. We won't get along with our husbands or our wives. And sometimes divorce will be the only way forward. So then Allah Ta'ala makes it clear how this should be done. And He gives us firm rulings on this, and He puts down boundaries regarding this. And this is also because women at the time, when the Qur'an was revealed, did not have many rights in that society. So Allah Ta'ala safeguarded some of their rights, and indeed provided them with some rights. Now we heard right at the end, a couple of weeks back, some ayat where Allah Ta'ala wanted us to use Allah's name when making a promise, when making an oath, in the best way. We shouldn't use it idly. And so then Allah Ta'ala continues here by saying, لِلَّذِينَ يُؤْلُونَ مِن نِسَائِهِمْ تَرَبُّصُ أَرْبَعَةِ أَشْهُرٍ. For those people who take an oath by Allah, that by Allah I will not sleep with you, he says to his wife, forever. Then what will happen is that woman should wait for 4 months. If he does not take her back, if he does not break this promise, and if he does not take her back, then this marriage is annulled. And this counts as a talaq. And this ayah came because at the time, there were many people, and this was in the time of the Jahiliyyah, there were many men who wanted to hurt their wives. They didn't like them, but they also didn't want to let them go. So what they would do is they would make such a promise by Allah, and then right when the 4-month time was coming to an end, they would then say, I've accepted you back. And they would sleep with their wives, and this way the marriage would be continued. And then straight after they had done this, they would say this again. So in this way, the woman was stuck. She wasn't widowed because her husband was still around, but she wasn't divorced either because she couldn't marry someone else. She was stuck with this man who didn't want anything to do with her. And she was stuck. She was left dangling, basically. She was left hanging. So Allah Ta'ala gave women, He saved these women from this predicament, from this problem. And so Allah Ta'ala made it clear that if during these 4 months this man has not decided, then that's it. The woman is free. And she can go and marry someone else if she wishes. فَإِن فَاءُوا. If the man chooses to take her back during these 4 months, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Then surely Allah is the oft forgiving and the most merciful. Why is Allah saying this? Because of course this man who has made this promise to Allah that he won't go near his wife for all of this time, during that time that he took to make that decision of taking her back, he neglected her rights. And so then, by taking her back, if he then does tawbah and he repents to Allah for not fulfilling the rights of his wife, then Allah is oft forgiving and He is most merciful. So by reminding us of His mercy and His forgiving nature, Allah Ta'ala is reminding us to do tawbah. He is saying that, remember, I am merciful, so come back to me when you've made this mistake. وَإِنْ عَزَمُوا الطَّلَاقَ. But if they choose, if this man chooses to stand firm and to let her go, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Then surely Allah is all hearing and all knowing. He knows what this man has actually said. Even if he said it just to his wife at the time, whatever he has said, Allah has heard it. And Allah is all knowing. So be very careful. وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ. Then Allah Ta'ala goes on and gives a more generic guidance. He says, and the mutallaqat, and the women who have been divorced, they should wait with themselves for 3 menstrual periods. So this means that if a woman has been divorced, if a man has told his wife that he has divorced her, then she should wait for 3 menstrual periods. So during that time, she remains within his nikah, meaning he still has to provide her shelter, her food, and her clothing. But after these 3, she can then leave and she can marry someone else. The fact that Allah is saying that they must wait with themselves, it means that they must hold themselves back. This woman may hate this man. Of course, he has divorced her, but still this is the command of Allah, so she should have sabr upon herself and hold herself back and say, fine, this is the command of Allah, I must wait for these 3 menstrual periods, after this I will go. وَلَا يَحِلُّ لَهُنَّ أَن يَكْتُمْنَ مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ فِي أَرْحَامِهِنَّ. And it is not permissible for these women to hold back the information about that which is in their womb. So if this woman, and of course only the woman knows if she is still having periods or if she is pregnant. Only she will know. And so she should not hold this information back. If she is indeed pregnant, then she will remain in this man's nikah until she gives birth. And so he will have to provide for her during that period. Now there's a relevant story from the hadith here where Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma divorced his wife when she was on her period. Now Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu, who was of course his father, he went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is something that we learn from the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, that they were not shy about discussing their problems, their personal problems with the Prophet in the hope that they might gain some advice. And this is something we should take as well. That if we are unsure about anything, if we want some guidance about anything, even if it seems to us quite trivial, we should go to those people with knowledge. We should go to our ulama and ask. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he goes to the Prophet and he asks him, that, what of this situation? My son has divorced his wife and she was on her period at the time. The Prophet became very angry. And he said to him that what he should do is take her back into his nikah. Let her become purified from this period now. Then let her have another period. And when she is purified from this, then he should not touch her in any way. And if he still wants to divorce her, then he should divorce her once. And that is it. And this teaches us the etiquette, the adab of giving divorce. Divorce is something that is greatly disliked by Allah. It is, of all the mubah things, all the halal things that we have, this is most disliked to Allah Ta'ala. And many people feel that they have to, if they're giving divorce, they have to say it 3 times. But this is not the case. In fact, this is also disliked. And to say it all 3 in one go is actually haram. It is something that is punishable. It is a grave sin to do this. One shouldn't take this lightly. So, this was the way the Prophet ﷺ taught how a person should give divorce. He should wait until the woman is not on her period, and then he should ensure that during that period after she has completed her period, he should not have touched her, and then he might divorce her. Because of course when a woman is on her period, she is going through enough stress as it is. She goes through the pain, the difficulty with all the cleanliness and so on. And then if you add this burden on her, this can be very difficult. So one should be careful with these things. And one should try to approach these things with a cool mind, as much as possible, as difficult as it is. وَبُعُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا. And their husbands, so these men who have divorced them, while they are waiting for these 3 periods to complete, then these husbands have the most right to take them back into their marriage. because of course technically they are still married. This could be seen as a cooling off period, where the man has said, I divorce you, and then afterwards he may then regret. Maybe a couple of days later, maybe the same day, maybe a few minutes later, maybe a couple of months later. But there is this cooling off period that Allah Ta'ala provides. And during this time, he may take her back into his nikah. Of course, this is if it's a raj'i nikah, talaq. So so the man who has given the divorce, he has the most right to take her back. And this is something that allows the preservation of the family. Because otherwise it would be very easy for men and women to marry various people very quickly after the talaq, and then the society would crumble. So this is a way of securing society and its strength. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Of course, this was in aradu islaha. If the man wants to take her back into his own nikah, then this is only if he wants to do good, if he has good intentions. He can't do this, he shouldn't do this, if he just wants to hurt her. So in the way that I described the people of the Jahiliyyah were doing, where they would give the talaq and then afterwards they would take her back, and then they would give talaq again and then take her back, and in this way she would be stuck and she would have no freedom. So only if a man is willing to go forward with goodness, only then should he take her back. وَلَهُنَّ مِثْلُ الَّذِي عَلَيْهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And the women have the same right to goodness as the men. So in the way that the women are required to be good to their husbands, in the same way Allah says, the women have a right to goodness from their husbands. So Allah Ta'ala is giving equality to the women with all goodness and goodwill. And we see that Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu says that from this ayah, I have decided, when he had heard this ayah, he then decided that he liked to beautify himself for his wife in the way that he liked for his wife to beautify herself for him. So he would groom himself properly when he came to his wife. And this was because he saw that she has the same right that he has of goodness and goodwill. وَلِلْرِجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةً. And men have a degree over them, over the women. But this isn't in terms of goodwill, because of course Allah has already said that in terms of goodness they are equal. But men have a degree over them, meaning in terms of the responsibility that they have. So men should not think that, yes, I am superior to this woman. Rather, this is a responsibility that Allah Ta'ala has put on him, to look after the woman, to provide for her. Wallahu azizun hakim. And just in case a man does think that he is superior and he is greater than the woman, Wallahu azizun hakim. And Allah is the one with all honor. He is the one with all izzah. So let no man think that he is superior in any way. Because of course Allah is most superior. And He is Hakim, and He is most wise. He is the owner of all wisdom. So these commandments that are coming are not something that a person might simply take and think, yes, fine, this is just advice. No, this is from Allah, the most wise. And if we might not understand some of this, then we must remember that it is not for us to understand everything. It is for us to say, Sami'na wa ata'na. We have heard and we have followed. This is it. He is the Al-Hakim. He is most wise. We may question, we may wonder, what is the wisdom behind this? And we may sometimes work out the wisdom behind some commandments from Allah. But there will be many times when we do not understand. But there will be many things that we do not like. But Allah knows that it is better for us. And there will be many things that we really like. And we really want these things. But Allah knows that they are bad for us. Allah knows and we do not know. Allah knows the outcomes. He knows the consequences of everything that will happen. So we must accept the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah ta'ala continues with this subject and He says, At-talaqu marratan. When a man marries a woman, then he becomes the owner, the malik of 3 talaqs. So Allah says, talaq is twice. فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, meaning that a man might divorce his wife on 2 occasions. Once and then maybe another time. فَإِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, and then afterwards, during that 4-month period, he may take her back, or, and that is with goodness, بِمَعْرُوفٍ أو تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, or he might let her go with goodwill. So there will be many men who may divorce their wives, but then they find it difficult to let go. So then they might harass the woman. They'll carry on calling her. They'll call her family, her friends. Oh, tell her I really love her and I want her back, and so on. If he has divorced her, if he has accepted, if he has decided that he doesn't want to be with her, then that's it. That's a final decision. He shouldn't then continue to harass her. This is what Allah Ta'ala is telling us. Let her carry on with her life. أو تسريح بإحسان ولا يحل لكم أن تأخذوا مما آتيتموهن شيئا إلا أن يخافا ألا يقيما حدود الله. And it is not permissible, it is not halal for you to take from them what you have given them, meaning their meher, the dowry. So you have given them their dowry, you have been with them, you have slept with them, you have given them the dowry as well, the meher. It's not now permissible for you to take this back from them when you decide to divorce them. إِلَّا أَن يَخَافَ أَلَّا يُقِيمَ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ, except when the husband and the wife fear that they will not be able to uphold the commandments of Allah, the boundaries of Allah. Meaning that the man has rights and the woman has rights. And so these are the boundaries of Allah. So if they fear that they won't be able to uphold these boundaries, and they won't be able to have an amicable split, then it is permissible for them to come to some sort of agreement. So they might have a middle person, maybe 2 middle people, 1 from each family, and then they might come to an agreement where the woman agrees to give the meher back, or whatever amount of money was given by the husband. She gives this back in return for the divorce. And once that agreement is made, then the divorce is sound, and there's no problem. So this is only allowed when there is a fear that there will not be a friendly split. فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا يُقِيمَا حُدُودَ اللَّهِ, so if you fear that this husband and wife will not be able to uphold the boundaries of Allah, meaning they will not be able to fulfill each other's rights, and there will be arguments and bickering, and the split will be messy, then فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا فِي مَا افْتَدَتْ بِهِ, then there is no harm in the man taking what he gave to her, the man. There is no harm in this. تِلْكَ حُدُودُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَعْتَدُوهَا, these are the boundaries of Allah, so do not cross them. Allah is very, very clear here, and these are very severe ayat. Allah is being very clear that these are the boundaries. Don't cross them, because this is such an important subject. If there is a messy split in a marriage, then it causes problems amongst the couple, amongst the children that are involved, amongst the wider families. And then if the 2 families are living in a small community, then it causes a rift within the whole community. So it's important to be very clear and uphold the boundaries of Allah, so that any split that happens is not so messy. And there are examples amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum when the wife wasn't very happy with living with the husband. There is one example, the wife of Thabit ibn Qais radiallahu anhu. who was in fact the daughter of Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. So she was the daughter of the head of the Munafiqeen. But of course she was a mu'minah, in the way that his son also was a firm believer. So this woman, who was the wife of Thabit ibn Qais, she came to the Prophet ﷺ. So she was of course from the Ansar. And the women of the Ansar were known to be very outspoken. They were not shy in seeking their rights or indeed seeking knowledge. And Aisha radiallahu anha is reported to have praised the women of the Ansar. They were not shy. When it came to seeking knowledge, they would come and they would ask. So this woman, this Sahabiya radiallahu anha, she comes to the Prophet ﷺ and she says that this man Thabit ibn Qais, I am married to him, but we don't see eye to eye. I can't fault his deen and I can't fault his character. He has excellent manners and he is a very devout Muslim, she says. But we don't get along. And there are other narrations of this story as well, where she also says that when I was about to get married on my wedding day, of course, she won't have seen him before they got married. So then, when I lifted the side of the tent, then I saw him approaching with other men. And I saw that he was the darkest among them, he was the shortest amongst them, and he was the ugliest amongst them. And ever since then, I've never been able to get over this. So of course, now the Prophet ﷺ knew him as a very good man as well, Thabit ibn Qais. And this was the response that he got when he asked her, what is wrong with him? Why do you want to split from him? And this was the sort of response she got. So she was very clear. She didn't hold back. She made it very clear that this is my problem. He's a very nice man. He's a very good believer, but we won't get along. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, fine, okay. And he knew that in the mahr, in the dowry, Thabit ibn Qais radiallahu anhu had given a garden to her. So he said to her, give him back his garden and that's it. Then you'll have your divorce. And she agreed, yes. And if he wants more, then that's fine as well. So then, of course, she agreed, and this was all. The split was sound, and the divorce happened, and this was known as. So this type of divorce is called a khula, where a woman agrees to a sum of money to then have the divorce take place if the man isn't agreeing. Because there's every possibility here that Thabit ibn Qais loved her very much. But what could he do? So then, here Allah Ta'ala is saying that if they fear, if the two people, the husband and the wife, fear that they will not be able to uphold the commandments of Allah, the boundaries of Allah, then there's no problem in him taking back some money, and that's it. They can split. وَمَنْ يَتَعَدَّ حُدُودَ اللَّهِ, and whoever crosses the boundaries of Allah, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ, and they are the oppressors. They are the ظالمين, those people who do dhulm. And of course, dhulm can mean oppression. But of course, the worst type of oppression is the type of oppression that a person commits upon himself, because remember that on the Day of Judgment, when this person who has crossed the boundaries of Allah comes in front of Allah, he will recognize that because of these bad deeds that he committed, because of the boundaries of Allah that he crossed, he is the one who is going to be in Jahannam. So we have to be very careful that we are not zalimeen, we are not those people who oppress ourselves and those people around us. Inshallah, we'll end it there. If there are any questions about what we've discussed, I'm happy to. Inshallah. Yes. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.